What's up, pre-Chiro students? It's Dr. Ben again with another meaningful conversation with a practicing chiropractor, somebody out in the Illinois area of the U.S. Can you just introduce yourself, Dr. Nathan, and just share a little bit about your background and your upbringing? And also just, thank you so much for sharing your story in this conversation that just aims to shine a light and provide some deeper insight into what it's like to become a chiropractor and what it's like to go through school and to practice and just anything we could do to shorten the learning curve and just help build context of how it's a different process than maybe going in a different pathway. So can we just get started by you introducing yourself, sharing a little bit about what your upbringing might have been like and what kind of put you on this path when you reflect back?
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. And Ben, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. And I love that this podcast exists. I would have been watching every episode, especially when I was in undergrad and starting chiropractic school. So I'm a little envious of all of you guys watching. So I'm from Palatine, Illinois. That's where I'm sitting right now. So I practice in my hometown, which is a little weird. And I was raised here. My uncle was a chiropractor. He, as I lovingly call it, graduated Earth in 2011. So I was adjusted from the time I was, I think every time I say this story, it gets a little bit younger, but somewhere between 1 and 2 years old was my first adjustment. I don't remember it, unfortunately. And so I was just sort of raised with chiropractic as part of what we did. Not really knowing a lot about it as a profession or it as a way of approaching life. More so just, we went periodically. At one point or another, my mom had a couple back injuries, probably from lifting me and my sister up so much. And so we went there quite a bit. And when I was a kid, I got bronchitis quite a bit, or as we called it in my house, bronchitis, the worst kind of chitis that you can get. And so I would go, once a year I would get it. I would go get adjusted and it would resolve within like a week. So I was like, that's just what you did. So I was just sort of always part of my family's culture. And then when I was in sixth grade, I was home in bed with just a cold one day on spring break, and my dad took my sister and my nana to a park, and they were playing and they were running around. And I mean, you've all been at parks, there's jungle gyms and like platforms and everything. And my dad was about to jump from a platform down to the ground, all of 2.5, 3 feet down, something he's done a million times. And for some freak thing, his legs slipped on the edge of the platform. He landed with his back on the knife edge of the platform. And by the time he hit the ground, he was paralyzed from the waist down. And so they took him to one of the biggest hospitals in the area. And over the course of a couple of days, tried to get the swelling to go down. Still didn't have feeling or sensation or movement in his legs. And so they went to him and said, okay, you've got options. You can either do nothing, in which case you'll never walk again, or we can do this surgery. It's a little experimental, involves a fusion and a couple other things. Going through an airport security with him is kind of funny now because he sets off all the alarms because of the metal in his spine. But if you do the surgery, you'll probably never walk again. We lovingly joke that they didn't know who they were dealing with because 1.5 years later, he was dancing at my bar mitzvah. And so that really, between being exposed to chiropractic forever and then kind of hearing from the best orthopedic and neurosurgeons that we could find that, pretty good chance he'll never walk again. And then having him dancing later and still walking to this day, I think it's in my unconscious or my subconscious is sort of implanted, like there's more going on to this besides just what the best medical doctors could tell us and my dad's immense willpower, which is not something to be underestimated. And then when I was younger, I did martial arts for a number of years. My dad and I actually both got our first degree black belts after his injury, which was pretty cool for us to do together. And then I was a photographer all throughout high school, went to college in Kenosha, Wisconsin, a little tiny school called Carthage. And when I was, by the way, if I'm going on too much, cut me off. When I was up at Carthage, they do a J-term trip, a January term. So you can either do a class in January next to Lake Michigan in Wisconsin, or they have a lot of study trips set up. And so my sophomore year, I went on a study abroad trip for a month in Nicaragua, and
Mm,
it was set up as a combination of geography and medical mission trip.
mm,
So I got to spend half my days hiking volcanoes and the other half serving in third world medical clinics in this island in Nicaragua, which was absolutely blew my mind open in all the right ways. It was so amazing and so impactful.
mm,
And kind of continuing the theme of what's the cause of the problems that we deal with. Um, when my group got back, we paired together with the professors who run the trip, and we started a nonprofit to try and get clean water on the island, because that's what we figured out. What the problem was it wasn't a lack of antibiotics or a lack of antivirals. The fact that the water was terrible, and I'm very proud that nonprofit is still running today. It's still doing service on the island, and so that trip has really transformed into geography, medical clinics, and clean water.
mm.
And then I went to chiropractic school at Life University in Marietta, Georgia.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, you touched on something that's really close and near and dear to my heart, which is going to a foreign country and figuring out what they need, what that gap is, figuring out how to help the culture and the community adapt better by providing resources that they lack access to, but that are out there. They just don't know it, they're out there. And I think that's a great segue for pre-Chiro students to recognize that as a chiropractor, when you see the world in the lens that you see the world through, you really are trying to figure out where do people have access to resources that they're not aware of, and how can we make that bridge, how can we build that connection in their minds to a resource like chiropractic or other things like clean water or healthy foods that are in their environment that they're just not aware of. And that just could be life changing, right? It's I like telling people that, what's something that's less than $50 that can change your life, and just asking them that question helps them start to really think about things. But anyway, can we just segue into you describing what it was like to go to Life University, and what it was like to arrive there? What's that sort of admissions process like? And maybe skip the admissions process, and what's that transition process like? Whatever you want to touch on, whatever you want to share,
Yeah,
just really hone in. And yeah, we're living in a TikTok attention span, so do your best to try and keep it to like under 3 minutes if possible.
you got it. When I was at Carthage, I was a biology major, and I picked that major because I knew in chiropractic school I'd be taking a lot of basic science and biology courses. So I designed my undergrad. I'm one of the weirdos who went to undergrad knowing that I wanted to go to chiropractic school, and I knew what I wanted to do after undergrad, and really didn't change my mind. Um, which I think probably puts me in the minority. Most of my friends changed a couple times. They knew they were going to get involved in some sort of healthcare field, but they didn't know exactly what. I'm one of the weirdos. And so I picked the electives, whether it was anatomy, physiology, immunology, biochemistry, because I knew I'd be taking them in my first year of chiropractic school. I looked at what was the first year of chiropractic school like and tried to give myself as much of a head start as I could possibly get. And so then I graduated Carthage, moved down to Georgia. And I'm, again, from Chicago, lived in Kenosha, which I lovingly joke is the northernmost suburb of Chicago. And then I moved down to Georgia. And it was a really fun and beautiful change for me. And that's one thing that I did. I did a tour of 5 different chiropractic schools. I went around the country and I checked them out. I asked chiropractors I knew, hey, if you were going to go back to school again now, where would you go? And I wanted to actually find out. I was not married to any particular geographic location. That's definitely one thing I see that was really beneficial. Just for me personally, it really expanded my view on things because I was immersed in a region, in a state, in a culture that was different, which really expanded my view on things, which was a really powerful thing. And then when I got down to life, it was intense. The first quarter of school, I went from in undergrad, I averaged like 12 to 16 credits at a time. And the first quarter of chiropractic school, I think, was 28 and didn't really slow down. The admissions process was pretty gentle, I thought. At the I don't know how it is now, but I know I did not have to take the MCAT or the GRE, which I'm really okay with. I did not need that rite of passage to get to chiropractic school. I didn't need it for myself either. But yeah, and so it was just a matter of really turning up the volume on the amount of credits I had in that academic curriculum, which
Mhm.
that academic part is, in my opinion, one of three parts of chiropractic school.
Okay, let's get into it. What are the other two parts of chiropractic school besides the academic curriculum, and what's the sort of ratio that you would place on each of these three parts in regards to where a student's energy and focus should be based obviously on their ability to do well in class or their ability to get through class with ease versus if they have a really difficult time with classes.
Absolutely. So one thing I will say is my recommendation: the first quarter or the first trimester that you're at school, really pound on the academic curriculum, because it's much easier to get your GPA up high at the beginning and just maintain it there than have to climb it back up later. I did that version, and it was much made the rest a lot easier.
Hmm.
So the three different curriculums, or the three different parts of becoming a chiropractor, is one, the academics, is going to class, learning the sciences, learning the diagnostic tests, learning what they teach in school. Now, every school has a little bit of a different approach to it. Um, a lot of chiropractic school these days is very medicalized, if that makes sense. Not necessarily in a bad way, just in how it is that they teach a lot of medical science, and so it's important to find a chiropractic school that will fit in as much like actual chiropractic in terms of techniques, discussions, communication as possible in the cracks. Um, because of that, and it's not the fault of the schools, there's a lot of politics, which we don't have to get into.
Mhm.
There is what I would call the parallel curriculum, which is going to offices and observing docs in practice, doing spinal screenings out in the public, and really getting those repetitions talking to people about all of the awesome, nerdy, neurological stuff and putting it in simple English. Um, and then that's also going to talks, going to seminars, going to clubs. Almost every school out there has adjusting clubs and technique clubs and clubs to learn how to communicate better, which is that communication piece is so crucial.
Mhm.
And my first year, I did not do an exceptional amount of seminars or observing. After my fifth quarter, I modified my schedule. So instead of being in 28 or 30 credits, I was at about 22 to 24. Gave me a little bit of breathing room, so that way I could really focus on not only how do I get through school, but how do I be successful once I leave.
Mhm.
And that's why there are certain schools around the country. I'll speak about the states. That are hubs for these seminars to be able to go to and learn from amazing docs that fly in. The three that come to mind are Life East or Life University in Georgia, Life West in the Oakland Hayward area, and then Sherman. They attract a lot of amazing chiropractors to learn from. And I would say do as many as you possibly can. Now, obviously, if you have kids or if you have to, work at the same time, you do fit as much as you can in as possible. It's much easier and much less expensive to do when you're in school.
Mhm.
Um, the third part is going to happen whether you're aware of it or not, in my opinion. And that's sort of the path of inner mastery that happens when you are becoming a chiropractor, and especially when you start practicing as one. The way I've often described it is it's like the consciousness of chiropractic looks at you and goes, okay, you want to serve people, you want to help increase the life expression in your fellow man and woman and children on earth. Okay, then we got to heal some of your wounds, and we got to do this, and this by the time you graduate, and we'll start on that by the time you open practice. I realize that sounds a little esoteric, so here's what I mean. Let's say, just for the sake of argument, that I had a need for attention and I had a need to be liked. In that instance, let's say I get into practice, I've not healed that at all, I've not worked on that at all. In that case, someone may come to me, and because I want them to like me, I may not recommend the right amount of care, or I'll say, come in whenever you want, you'll be fine, because I want them to like me, as opposed to coming from my value of service and my value of connection and being able to stand for someone and say, with where you're at and what's going on in your life, this is the care I would recommend as if you were my mother, as if you were my cousin, as if you were my sister, and not have to come from that need. Does that make a little bit of sense how I'm phrasing it, Ben?
No, this is very valuable. I would love for you to keep going with this. I think that we should spend some additional time really exploring some of those I guess gaps in consciousness, or like you just mentioned, one of them is the need to be liked by others. I think that that's a big one to overcome. I would love for you to touch on a couple of the other
Absolutely.
sort of inner challenges that people, or inner obstructions that people face when transitioning from, student to chiropractor.
I would love to. The one that came to mind when you're talking about other needs is need to control. I've been joking with people in my practice for the past year that if you are the kind of person who needs absolute certainty of what your life will look like tomorrow, next week, next month, and next year, then the past 12 months has been either what A, complete torture, or B, a beautiful opportunity to potentially allow that part of yourself to relax. And rather coming from a need for control, everything's got a high vibration and a low vibration, rather than a need for control, a value of clarity of who am I in this world, how am I going to interact, and what can I do today? And just focusing moment to moment and day by day.
Mhm.
The other one that came to mind is I'll be gentle and say our stuff around money. Almost everybody has it. It has some sort of glitch in their inner matrix on money, and for some people that may come from, if I'll use the example of a friend of mine that his dad was not exactly a particularly loving, honoring dad or husband, but he had a lot of money. So what did my friend do? He equated money to being a jerk unconsciously. So he's, and I give him credit. He has worked so hard to unwind that and unravel that and rewrite that part of himself. Or Ben, let's play a game. Fill in the blank. The root of all evil is
Money.
exactly. It's just sort of seeped into our Western culture. Money is a tool just like anything else, and it does not define or create an expression of who you are. It just reveals it. If, like, for example, I don't think anyone would mind if we gave Mother Teresa $150 million bonus, because we know A, she'd take care of herself, and B, then she would do a lot of good with it.
Mhm.
Versus if we give that to Jeff Bezos, might not. Okay, good. None of the drones attacked. We might have an issue with it. So that's my point about money. It just it's like I've heard it described as it's like a brick. You can either build schools with it or you can throw it through windows. It just depends on who you are. So getting really clear on money and cash, especially because the way our society is currently running, is that's how we exchange value for things. And
Mhm.
as soon as you get out of chiropractic school, you're going to be asking people to give you money in exchange for a service. And so the more you can do on that now, whether that's talking about it, reading about it, writing about it, really starting to unravel, like, what are your particular issues with actually having money and cash in a bountiful, abundant way, is good, because the work that we do is so valuable to people. I've seen it over the last year alone, how much peace and ease it has brought to people's lives, let alone to their physiology.
Mhm.
Yeah. You said something else a moment ago, and I had a thought on it, but we can. Shall we keep going on this train of thought? Because I'll.
Yeah, most
Oh,
definitely. So when talking about this third part of becoming a chiropractor, this path of inner, I'm
mhm.
calling it the inner state, in breaking innate up into inner state. And the inner state is your inner scientist, your inner thinker, your inner artist, your inner teacher, and your inner entrepreneur. And you've mentioned relinquishing the need for control, the need to be liked, the exchange of money, and what that feels like for people. What are some of the other barriers that people or need to shift their mindset around? Or I love how you describe the process of of reflecting and rewriting and reorganizing the way that you perceive
Mhm.
these things. And I think that we do need to call them out and name them. Are there any others that come to mind that people really do need to work through while they're in chiropractic school?
Um, and by the way, I do understand the irony of saying you have to let go of your need for control, given that chiropractors work on the master control system of the body. So I lovingly joke that I'm a control freak. I just channel it in a really constructive way. Um, the one that is coming to me at the moment is to really cultivate trust, and that really starts with yourself and trusting your inner guidance, your whether that for some people that's gut feelings, for other people it's a very intuitive sense of things, other people it's almost like they hear like turn left or go to Whole Foods, not Jewel, or whatever the local thing is. um you know, other people it's like you look out in the world and you can see exactly what's lighting up and what's not, and I think it's a matter of trusting that.
Mhm.
And it can be literally as simple as you're trying to figure out what route to take somewhere and you get a sense, go left, don't go right. Trust it. And the more you do that, the more that will cultivate that part of you. Because especially in school, like the prereqs to get into chiropractic school, and then the process of going through chiropractic school is incredibly left-brained. You know, the sheer tonnage of random factoids I have rattling around in my brain. Sometimes someone will ask me a question. I have no idea what file I pulled it out of in my head, just because you do so much left brain learning. But that's cutting out a whole component of you, which is that right brain, which is that creativity and that intuition.
Mhm.
The other main, and you asked about this was I circled back around to it. You asked about the shift, some of the shifts that have to occur. One of the important ones that happens when you graduate chiropractic school is, now some people you work for a while and then go to chiropractic school as a second or third or fourth career. Other people go directly from undergrad to chiropractic school. Other people take a gap year. All of it's beautiful. You know, it's very much a matter of what is right for you. After you graduate chiropractic school, it is a marathon of little tiny finite games. We used to joke at life, because it's a quarter system, that I live my life 11 weeks at a time. And so you're used to running things, just knowing what I have to get, knowing, accomplishing this goal, finish this game, move on to the next, move on to the next. When you get out of school and you get into practice and into serving people and into life, it's an infinite game. It's not a matter of winning the game. Like, Ben and I have a combined, you know, X number of years in practice. You could ask both of us, what's winning chiropractic, or what does winning practice look like? It's kind of a funny question, and we will both have completely set different answers. There's some overlap for sure,
Mhm.
but it's very much, you know, it depends on what it means to you. So
Mhm.
it's a matter of shifting into, how do I continue to cultivate the will and the resources to stay in the game, to keep going. And rather than having to feel like I have to get it right, like, you know, A, B, or C, A, B, or C, no, it's D, it's all of the above. It's a matter of, I'm going to try this. For marketing, I'm going to try this for the next couple months, see what happens. I'm going to throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. And
Mhm.
so it's just a matter of really shifting from that, as Simon Sinek would call, the finite game to the infinite game.
Mhm.
And the genius that he is, he actually mapped out, what do you need? And one of them, one of the first components of playing in that infinite game that we're all trying to get to, is having a just cause that is inclusive, that's positive, that is focused on other people. And in that regard, chiropractic's got it going on.
Mhm.
One of the other biggest things you can do while you're in undergrad and in chiropractic school is get around the people who inspire you, who can help see that potential in you and will lovingly call you out on your shit. Sorry, didn't mean to use a cuss word. Um, Two of my biggest mentors, one of their main gifts was they were able to help me really face those parts of myself that I didn't want to look at, and work on those old wounds, combined with their ability to serve people is off the charts. And so I learned from them as much as I possibly could. So
Mhm.
does that make sense a little bit?
Yeah, most definitely. I appreciate this introspection, and I think that as we have these conversations for pre-Cairo students, it's really important to show them the long-term outlooks and I think what you're touching on is at the heart of what people can really put in front of them and not use as a checklist, but just as like put up there on the board of like, okay, I really got to work on these things because these are universal challenges. Like money exchange is something that I think everybody deals with at least at some point. Maybe, like you said, there's experience prior to school with exchanging money, and that's where encouraging pre-Chiro students to engage in some sort of entrepreneurial activity where they are exchanging money and they are seeing the value of what they provide as something worthy of a money exchange, I think is invaluable. But can you just mention sort of what it's like to be around the mentors and how you approach the mentorships that you've been able to cultivate? What are some of the intentions that you set for how you're going to sort of extract any sort of experiential wisdom, or how you're going to approach your learning with these mentors?
Sure. For me, it happened very organically at first. Each of the mentors like, whether in undergrad or in chiropractic school or beyond, it happened very organically. I met them, and it's like kind of like when you meet someone and you're like, there's some download that they have. They're the way they are, that who they are being is something that resonates with me in a way that makes me feel both a little intimidated and a little excited. Um, and I just continue to choose to be around them. So in chiropractic school, it was pretty easy. I went to their offices for care. If they were doing a seminar, I was there. If they were doing a talk, I would invite people. And I think that's one thing to really make. There's a balance. We're gonna play our same game, the fill in the blank. It is better to give than to
Receive.
right. Another piece of BS, in my opinion, because
Mhm.
we can't give more than we can receive. I can't love somebody else more than I love myself.
Mhm.
Brene Brown talks about this beautifully in a lot of her work. And so if I'm wanting to learn from one of these mentors, then I will do my best to support them in what they're doing, whether that is referring people to their office, whether that is supporting the ways that they're teaching. Um, Sometimes it's just bringing them coffee. And as I've gone with two mentors in particular that I'm thinking of, we've really developed a close friendship that I can now say that the two that I'm thinking of are Wade Port and Susan Rossi in the Georgia area. That not only do I consider them mentors, but I consider them some of my dearest friends. Um, because I chose to bring something to the game. I wasn't trying to just suck and leech off of them. I wanted it to be again that dynamic exchange as
Mhm.
best as possible. And now, you know, I've heard it described that when you're in a mentor relationship, it should ideally it'll go both ways. That they will learn from you, you will learn from them. You support each other, you love each other, and you will find more and more and more. And sometimes you reach the point where it's like, oh, cool, we've done our dance. I feel like at a soul level, I feel totally complete, and I still love you and support you. And I need to learn from other people now.
Mhm.
And especially now with Zoom calls, and it's not exactly the best part of last year, but it is a silver lining that we now have all gotten really good at connecting across vast differences. He's in Oakland, I'm in Chicago, and we make it work.
Yeah,
Um,
most definitely. Can you kind of touch on your connection to MLS and how you really got? Can you actually first give an overview of um, what the experience is like to go to an MLS seminar, and also what the format of MLS seminars are?
I would love to. Um, so MLS is a seminar series that I'm on the teaching staff for, entitled Mastery, Love, and Service, and it is a very experiential seminar. So remember that left brain, right brain balance we're talking about. A lot of a lot of seminars in across the board, you sit, you listen, you take a lot of copious notes. There might be even a test at the end, just depends. And there's a little bit of like hands-on and getting to experience it. We completely flip the ratio on its head. So it's, I lovingly joke, 96% hands-on and 4% sitting and listening. And if you're listening, it's usually because we're sharing something about how we do it. And it is in that experiential process, our desire and our deepest intention is to help you learn how to approach chiropractic, people, life in it from a state of peace and ease. Tony Robbins is big about talking. You can have all the strategies in the world you want, but if your, as you put it, your inner state is chaotic as heck, it's going to be much more challenging. So how do we cultivate that place of peace and ease? And then how do we provide gentle and honoring yet deep and profound service to people? The approach was developed by Arnaud Bernier, who back in the late 70s and 80s, he was in practice, and he saw a lot of very violent adjustments, very heavy-handed. People were leaving going, "Ooh, I know that's better, but wow, that was rough." And I cannot stress this enough. He is French. And so he said, "No, you don't want to violate the spine. You want to make love to the spine." I can't do his accent very well, but that originally it was called making love to the spine. We've since changed it because that was designed to really shock people's consciousness. It did its job, and so now we call it mastery, love, and service. But how do you cultivate an intimacy with yourself so that way you can bring all of who you are, all of your gifts? One of the biggest things, one of the weirdest and most prevalent things that we see while teaching is, let's say, Ben, did you do sports when you were a kid?
Yes.
What'd you do?
I was a soccer, tennis, basketball.
Perfect. Soccer, tennis, and basketball. So lots of footwork, lots of unique shapes you had to get to, and you had to really learn how to use momentum to your advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of students, when they get to chiropractic school, it's like they cut off everything from their previous life, and it's like, I'm just a chiropractic student now. Whereas, how do we bring out your natural gifts, all of the skills that you developed from learning how to play tennis, basketball, and soccer, and translate that into serving people in a way that people will happily hand you their newborn baby saying, "Will you please check my child?" Because for them, it is so honoring and so loving, and they can feel not only your clinical knowledge, but your heart of service combined with the skills to pay the bills, meaning that you can take those steps on that path of mastery. So that way you get to become that, not that once in a lifetime, that extraordinary chiropractic experience that not only helps people heal and express more health, but sparks their own awakening and inner evolution, if you choose. Yeah.
What are some like specific interests that you personally have? I've heard you mention Brene Brown. I've heard you mention Simon Sinek. How have you really, even outside of chiropractic, been able to see chiropractic in other people's teachings and gone out and learned other skills that really help support who you are as a chiropractor?
Yeah. I love, I'm going to talk about Wade again. He and I lovingly joke that we have developed OCD, which is Obsessive Chiropractic Discipline, which is that, we watch a movie called like the Legend of Bagger Vance, which is a golf movie. We see chiropractic in it. Because chiropractic is so focused on the potential that resides within every single cell, every single person, I can kind of find it in everything. And it became, I heard the words of Arnaud Bernier and I heard the words of Sue Brown, two amazing chiropractors. You can look up on YouTube, highly recommend it. One of Arnaud's things is that who you are as a person precedes who you are as a chiropractor. And Sue was like the Rumi of chiropractic, where she would talk about chiropractic the way that Rumi talked about love. And Ben's nodding his head because he knows them. And Sue was very much talking about the potential for deep, powerful healing and awakening and evolution. And so because of that, I'm like, okay, I knew based on some experiences I had in college, I was, let's just say, very lightly depressed in some of the last bits of college. I'm like, okay, I got some stuff to work on here before I'm going to go serve the people. So I became, as some of my friends lovingly call it about each other, like we're self-help junkies. But it's really about finding those teachers out there that help you cultivate that path of inner mastery, not just mastery of your skills, but a deep knowing, connection, intimacy, and expression of who you are. So two that I love that are not in chiropractic, but everything they talk about applies to chiropractic, is Simon Sinek and Brene Brown. I love learning from them. And then when I was about midway through school, I met Susan Rossi, who I've mentioned before, and she does a lot of classes about esoteric and metaphysical teachings. and also about that rewriting of concepts and belief systems. So not only did I learn a lot, do a lot of her work with her, I learned how to be a practitioner of it. So rewriting those concepts and belief systems in a really gentle and easy way.
Mhm.
I'm also, I also love being outside. I have a dog named Millie, and it was funny. Just like you asked, like, how do you see chiropractic and everything? Becoming a dog dad, which I've never had a dog before. My girlfriend and I adopted her about 6 months ago. Just doing that, I learned a lot about myself. How do I respond to stress? How do I respond? How do I react or respond when she's going nuts on a walk and barking at somebody? And how do I respond? Do I get pissed off? Do I get like, I'm so sorry? Or do I figure out how to just still stay in that neutral, peaceful place while also holding her and standing for like the good dog I know that she is. Like, you know, it, in my opinion, you can like chiropractic because it's not exclusively about the spine. That's our primary access point, but it's about life. So all of life is fair game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to
Yeah,
be.
and can you kind of just reflect on the types of experiences that you have that relate to that analogy of having a dog that's barking at another dog, and how you have to be in a state of peace or just in a state of acceptance of things are the way they are, where people come into our offices
Mm,
having misconceptions of what it is that we do, but also having kind of strong desires to be fixed quick and to have really complex stories that they want to tell you about their whole life, and they're looking for you to really address those deeper challenges in that visit that day, or rather quickly. Can you just kind of talk about the consciousness of humanity right now, and how it is to be a chiropractor within that?
absolutely. Um, Last year, the last 12 months have been a little weird, and whatever whatever was going on in people has just been amplified. If they were a little kind of not sure about their bodies or untrusting of their bodies, boy, did that get cranked up to 11. If they were already aware of the need for a greater level of equality and equanimity in our culture, then boy, did that get cranked up. And everyone, all of these things have been getting cranked up. If you were even mildly aware of the disproportionate amounts of wealth between someone like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and a single mother or father of two, like you kind of figure like it all got cranked up. So where we're at right now, the tricky part is everyone's in a state of stress. Almost every single person is coming in, and I use an HRV scan, a heart rate variability scanner. I got the evidence to show you how stressed people are. Either they're overexhausted or they're completely stressed out. So either they're driving down the highway with their foot glued to the gas pedal and the brakes haven't worked since the Bush administration, or they're trying to drive down the highway with a parking brake on. Both will get you somewhere. They'll wear out the engines real quick. Um, Being able to communicate this simply and let people know, hey, it's not in your head. Your body is in trouble at the moment. It needs some help here.
Mhm.
And knowing that it's all working out exactly as it should be. That for I can either view it, whether it is the current mass consciousness and culture right now, or whether it is someone coming into my office telling me everything going on. I can either focus on that's bad, that's wrong. Your body is breaking down. We gotta fix it. Or we can focus on, yeah, this isn't working optimally right now. This is not comfortable at all. This is incredibly painful, and it can change by focusing on the potential that's stored up within. At this
Mhm.
point, if especially if you're an undergrad, you probably had to take at least one little tiny bit of physics. So if a boulder's at the top of a hill and it hasn't rolled down yet, it's got a lot of potential energy stored up in there.
Mhm.
Our job is to gently help that potential to express itself, or to let go, turn that into from potential into kinetic energy, moving energy, and direct it a little bit.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and I don't know. I love seeing kids in my office, Ben. I imagine you do too. And
Mhm.
I love just how many chiropractors are really putting in the time and energy to see and serve kids, especially with all of the challenges going on, not even counting the last year of their lives where they've been isolated and alone and scared. But with all of the different health challenges, being able to cultivate that place of stillness in myself, I have kids who everywhere else they bounce off the walls of wherever room they're in. They drive their parents crazy, and I can just feel the stress and the tension. I can see it happening. But the strongest paradigm wins. So when they're in my walls, when they're in my boundaries, I let them entrain to me. And even if before I've adjusted them, they calm down and they relax a little bit. May not be a lot, but a little bit. And then time and repetition, time and consistency in any process are the two biggest allies that we have. And that is one challenge that you and I both face. And if you're going into chiropractic, you'll butt heads with sooner or later. A lot of people want things to happen now. And I blame Amazon because you can get a package the next day. However, people understand that things take time. One of my favorite analogies is, especially if I'm talking to parents, like, it took you 9 months to grow a whole new human being. Or it took your kids 5, 6, 7 months to learn how to use the bathroom, to potty train them. Everything takes a little bit of time. I will do my darndest to accelerate it as fast as we can possibly do it in the most gentle and sustainable and easy way we can. But I think the way that I phrase it in my office is, not only do I want things to change and shift for you and for you to get to that next level of who you are, but I want that to be sustainable. I don't want this to just last for a month or two. I want this to be a little bit of time that we invest so that with the next 5, 10 years of your life are amazing. And you look back on now when we met, you're like, my gosh, how was I even living that way?
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest misconceptions is that once you start going to a chiropractor, you have to go forever. You absolutely don't. Most people just eventually choose to make it part of their life because of what it does for their quality of life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's an investment in self, and becoming a chiropractor is such a strong choice to invest in yourself, right? You are your number one asset.
Mm-hmm.
You are here for a reason as a potential chiropractor, somebody who can, you really have to ask the question of what type of impact you want to make. And when you start talking about taking care of kids, I just think about how I'm really able to imprint that trust, that sort of relaxed posturing that they take out into the world with them, and how that translates and trickles into the activities they engage in, or how they relate to other kids and their parents and themselves. So the ability to impact one's life is so deep as a chiropractor. And I just appreciate you really touching on some of the real specific pieces. I think a lot of what we touched on had Arno's energy behind it, of the need to be liked or the need to have control. And I just remember him going deep into that. Do you remember him talking about the different archetypes of the magician and the...
Yeah.
Can you kind of speak to that and reflect on what you remember about how he was able to really look at the different types of characteristics or archetypes of humans that we encounter as chiropractors?
Yeah, I can kind of do my version of it.
Yeah.
The way that I think about it, I find Enneagram being a really helpful tool for me, as in terms of the different archetypes and ways personalities express themselves. That you have some people who are really assertive. You have some people who are a little more withdrawn, and you got people like me who are somewhere in the middle where we're compliant. It's kind of that middle ground there. And everyone also, people will base their decisions, and what will drive their emotions drive action. So you can give people as much information as you want. Like, we live in the information age. We're choking on the information we have, frankly. So how do emotions are what actually ignite action. People will base their emotions on either image, fear, or anger, by and large. And there's no right or wrong. It's just, it just depends on you. And so if I know that I'm pretty compliant and I know that I'm image driven, because I am, that lets me know when I'm at my neutral state, how do I base decisions? If I know that when I get at a personality level or an ego level stressed, that I disintegrate and I become anger driven and assertive, and I see that happening, I know, oh, okay, I can relax that part of myself. Or if I have someone come in who that's how they make decisions, I can consciously shift into that part of myself briefly, because we all do all of these. Um, the archetypes that Ben was talking about was magician, lover, king. Always, for the life of me, forget the last one, and I can never remember what it is. I believe it's sage. But it's, in what way, at your natural best, do you approach the world, and where do your gifts shine from? And again, we can all do all of these. And so you can actually, there's a book on it called, I think it's Lover, Magician, King, Sage. Make it really simple.
Hmm.
As a general rule, I think the reason that part of the reason Ben and I connect so well, and the fact that we're talking about all this stuff so much, is that as a general guideline, you can't take anyone further than you yourself have gone or are willing to go in the moment with them.
Hmm.
And sometimes during healing, for when people are really healing, it gets a little dicey. It's not always sunshine and rainbows. And we always talk about the potential and the light within, and light flushes up darkness on people. And so you have to, are you able and willing to hold space for them to really heal that part of themselves? Like, yeah, they may be coming to you with back pain, but if the back pain if the back pain is coming from the job they got that they hate, that they only got because their dad forced them into it, and is seated then with all of their unresolved stuff with their dad, well, then you can't separate people into segments. Like, we study it that way. We got to look at the different parts of the systems of the body, but it's all of who they are. And so part of it is being able to cultivate and be able to recognize, got it. If Ben has a little bit of has a soft kind of a lover nature to him, then I'm not going to come at him with a lot of direct assertive stuff. We're going to just kind of dance together. It's building your ability to communicate with people and connect with people in such a way that you build rapport. And when you have that rapport, that's when the window opens to really powerful experiences, that you leave the end of the day having more energy than when you got there, because you've put in the time to get to know yourself really well, to build your communication skills, to be able to have the chiropractic skills to serve people at an exceptionally high level, and to have it be in a dynamic exchange. And so, especially to all of you guys who are in undergrad, because I remember it vividly, sitting and working on chemistry lab reports with my friends, and we're all just going, because we're all wanting to go into healthcare somehow, just being like, to one day help people, to one day help people, to one day help people. I'm here to tell you that it's worth it. It's so worth it. And if I had to go back and do the 4 years of undergrad and the 4 years of chiropractic school again, I would easily.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't.
All right, we're going to wrap up here in a few seconds. I appreciate the energy here. Listening hands. How do we train our hands to be sensors and to really listen with our hands as chiropractors?
Yeah. So number one, it's a skill you already have. When you hug someone, back when we could all hug each other, when you hug someone, how much pressure is too much, how long to hold the hug. You have already been training it your entire lives. If you've ever held a baby, congratulations, you're training to be a chiropractor. If you've held a puppy or a kitten, you've trained to be a chiropractor. Being able to hold another thing in that soft, gentle way, but in a way they know you got them. Number two, give yourself permission to feel what you feel. We have got 5 million receptors in each hand. However, if we're always pushing in a really hard, forceful way, then we're only going to activate the pressure sensors. We're only going to get a little tiny fraction, as opposed to all of the vast array of things that you can feel. So give yourself permission and just start connecting with people, not in a searching way, but in a curious way, with the mantra of show me. So if you're in chiropractic school, get together, one of you lay down on a table or on a couch or on the floor, the other person just practice passing your hands and notice what you notice. Oh, this feels hotter. This feels stuck. This feels like there's something here. Like this feels like inviting somehow. Build up that and build up your own inner glossary of what things feel like. If somebody knows, like, yeah, I got a reverse curve, put your hands on their neck with permission and be like, okay, this is what that feels like. So that way, if you're on a service trip in Nicaragua on an island somewhere, and you put your hands on someone's neck, you're like, this is a reverse curve. I know exactly how to take care of this, even without an X-ray,
Mm-hmm.
because all of our outer technology is a reflection of the technology we have within us.
Mm-hmm.
In my
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate the insights. There's a lot of things that we just talked about there. Can we kind of shift gears a little bit, just chiropractor to chiropractor? What would you like to see more of in the profession, or what would you like to see the education system do to shift? I'm just curious if you have any creative solutions. Just having a solution-oriented dialogue around the profession, the education, the way that we function as a culture, as a sort of ecosystem of people, of schools, of organizations, of clubs, of there's just so much out there, and I'm just curious if you see any ways that we can better adapt the model to reach higher levels of organization.
Absolutely, I love the question. The biggest thing I see is that people in large, in the broad culture and within our subculture of the chiropractic community, we have lost our ability to respectfully disagree. And we've lost our ability to be able to acknowledge that people can change their minds. And we get so locked into this, well, you said this a year ago, so you must still believe it. Or I'm going to judge everything you've ever done, all the good you've ever said in the world, against this one thing that I disagree with. I'm going to use a small cuss word. Is that okay? It's bullshit. I work off of there's a universal law of non-judgment, which says that judgment is man-made. The divine does not judge us. I happen to like that universal law. You can look it up online. It's really 105 universal laws. Look them up. They're a lot of fun. Let's say that I have a mom who has come into my office and she's never heard of chiropractic before. She knew it existed, but she brings in her 2-year-old who's had 17 ear infections. They've done rounds and rounds of antibiotics, and they're coming to me at the last minute before they put the tubes in because they saw a blog post or a YouTube video or whatever. Or their cousin said, "Hey, go see a chiropractor. They can help." And they Google me, and I come up first because all this stuff, and they come in. What possible benefit does it serve me to judge them for the choices they've made? Does that in any way open or enhance the healing potential that can happen? I don't think it does. I can acknowledge that maybe not what I would have chosen for myself or my kids when I have them, but I work off the premise that everyone's doing the best they can. And if you work off the premise of that everyone's doing the best they can with the skills they have, with what they've got, obviously, I don't know that it's true, but my life is so much easier, more graceful, and better when I operate as if it is true. So, there may be people in chiropractic there may be our fellow colleagues who practice very differently than I do, who bring in let's say they bring in a lot of more physical therapy modalities into their practice, which I don't do personally. I can respect them for who they are and what they're bringing to the world, and knowing that there are people out there who that is the perfect chiropractic expression for, that is exactly the way that chiropractor, whether he or she languages things, communicates things, serves things, it's the exact right chiropractic that they can have at that moment. And I can disagree with them maybe about how I would practice, and maybe whether or not it falls under the category of chiropractic or not chiropractic. But if I can respectfully disagree with them, then we can at least have a dialogue about it. We can at least be open to each other about it. Mm-hmm. So that's part one, which I realized that went on for a quick tangent. The other thing is I would encourage chiropractors to not settle at any particular level of where their skill set is at, whether that's communication, whether that's business, whether that is the art of applying with our hands these amazing principles of life and healing for the people we serve. You know, I go to a lot of chiropractic seminars. I'm constantly learning from other people as best as I can because I want every adjustment I give to be better than the one I gave yesterday. I want every adjustment to be a little better, a little better, a little better. You know, I know I'm not going to get to the perfect level, and that's totally cool with me. I want to keep walking on that path of mastery, so that I've only been in practice for a couple of years. I look back on where I was when my first week in practice of my own practice, and I almost laugh like, wow, I've gained so much. I've learned so much. My skills have improved so much because I've put in the time in and I've not gone on autopilot. The big difference between going in autopilot and disconnecting and not paying attention and being in that flow state that we've kind of alluded to. And so if you are the kind of chiropractor watching who who loves curve correction and postural work and changing things like changing people's lives that way, that is awesome. I love you for it. May it be beneficial to also look at some of the more tonal approaches. I love CBP is amazing. Network spinal analysis is amazing. Network spinal is amazing. They both work off of changing the meningeal system. So may it be beneficial to look at how to improve techniques by bringing your technique, because you can only ever be a master of your art, of yourself, of your expression of chiropractic. So if you really love Gonstead, awesome. You're not, in my opinion, you're not a Gonstead practitioner. You're a Ben Glass practitioner. So, how do you continue to build your skill set to reach more people, both when they're on the table and in your community?
Mm-hmm.
That sort of answer the question?